So I'm excited to see people popping in and coming in this morning.
Well, I wish we were presenting in person and all of us could be together instead of virtual again this year.
Me too. I was looking forward to that. It would have been my first in-person NEAFCS. So I do see that it's 11, and I'm sure that there will be some participants that jump in, as we move through these first few minutes, but I would like to go ahead and get started.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending this session entitled Bestowing Children with Superpowers. Today we're going to discuss a new program offered by Purdue Extension called Heroes Storytime. And Heroes is an acronym that stands for Helping Every Child Reach Optimum Success. As a housekeeping note, please place questions in the chat box that you may have. We will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. To introduce myself, I am Barbara Ballou, Human Development Specialist with Purdue Extension. I'm on Purdue's campus in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. My responsibilities include providing oversight for statewide programs related to human development. So I'm turning it over to my colleague, Allison.
I am Allison Hillis. I am the Health and Human Sciences educator in Howard County and a co-author of Heroes Storytime. So, and I think as Barb said, just as a note, Heroes stands for Helping Every Child Reach Optimum Success. So with that, I would like to ask, thinking about superpowers, if you could bestow a superpower upon children to help them reach optimum success, what would it be? So go ahead and share that in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I would also like to invite you to share your name and what state you are from. I like it, self-confidence, reading, forever confidence, and self-worth. I like it. Thank you. So keep them coming in. That's totally good. So sharing a little bit about Heroes Storytime. So Heroes Storytime is a compilation of 8 books because it's a reading program, and the books are to be read, explored, shared with preschool age children. So this is really geared towards, as we were writing it, children ages 3 to 5. And the overreaching goal of the program is to support the social emotional development of young children. This is done through promoting some of the 40 developmental assets. We call these assets superpowers. So preschool educators are really important to fostering the growth and the learning of young children. And each selected book has a curriculum page that early childhood teachers can use in their classrooms to help guide the discussion of the book and extend the activities. Heroes Storytime also recognizes that parents are a child's first teacher. And Heroes Storytime, seeing that importance, knows that family involvement can help continue to develop preschoolers with solid social emotional skills and assets. So family newsletter is also included, and it's designed to be sent home with each book as it's read. And in the newsletter, the families learn and hopefully engage a little bit more with their children and fostering the 40 developmental assets at home. So we're going to talk more and show these two resources towards the end of the presentation. We know that by building assets in children, this leads to the primary prevention of violence. So in building these superpowers in children, They will be introduced to skills that can help prevent child abuse, sexual assault, and domestic violence before it even starts. We all have the power that gives us strength to do our best, to help others and handle our frustration. And everyone knows that Batman and Superman, Spider-Man and Superwoman wear a disguise that hide our superpowers until they are needed. But our superpowers, we don't need to hide those. They are special, and we can use our superpowers every day to do our best, be kind, be honest, and help others. We can use our superpowers to show our love and friendship. And when we do that, we can become superheroes too. So Hero Storytime Developing was a collaborative effort, and it was initially started between two organizations in Howard County. The first was the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, and the other one was the Family Service Association of Howard County. So Child Care Solutions was the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency in Howard County. That's where I worked. And we served young children and early childhood providers in an 11-county area in the state. So as a professional development coordinator, I was able to bring knowledge and expertise in early childhood best practices and developmentally appropriate activities to the effort. The Family Service Association is a multi-program agency, including the domestic violence shelter here in Howard County. And in their domestic violence shelter, they had a domestic violence and sexual assault victims advocate. And she brought knowledge and expertise of primary prevention strategies to supporting, youth and children development, and then also knowledge of safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments. Seeing the need for both child abuse and neglect prevention and also early childhood supports, these two agencies came together to create Hero Storytime. Purdue Extension then saw the program as an opportunity to promote research-based strategies statewide. So with the coordination of Purdue Extension, further development of these materials that we started brings Hero Storytime across the state of Indiana. Purdue Extension also coordinated publications which were reviewed for content accuracy by early childhood professors at both Purdue and Yale universities. So together, these three agencies have further developed Hero Storytime curriculum to support young children's social emotional development. So thinking about being a primary prevention program, the goal is that Hero Storytime is going to be proactive, and it's going to be a systematic process that promotes healthy environments and behaviors and reduces the likelihood or the frequency of violence before it happens. So just like superheroes who protect society and make the community a safe place to live, Hero Storytime can be part of a healthy community involvement to develop beneficial skills that preschoolers can use into adulthood. Primary violence prevention empowers children to succeed by focusing on the health of the community to make it a safe place to live. So in speaking towards protective factors, these are circumstances or qualities in individuals, families, communities, or the larger society that reduce or eliminate risk and increase the health and well-being of children and families. Protective factors help parents to find resources, supports, and coping strategies that help them to parent effectively, even under stress. And I know that in the Wednesday session on early childhood, they did mention protective factors in there. So I love seeing how multiple states are working towards and working on developing things like this. So in early childhood, developing strong, positive social emotional skills such as empathy, communication skills, self-esteem, as I've seen several people mention, self-regulation and conflict resolution, amongst others. This leads to the development of protective factors in children. So these skills and social emotional competencies do not evolve naturally, though.
We build strong children through promoting, teaching, and reinforcing the 40 developmental assets from Search Institute. These are the building blocks for successful children. On the resource list, which we can provide you after today, you will find the link to the 40 developmental assets from Search Institute. So we're curious about your experiences with the 40 developmental assets And we invite you to participate in this quick poll. Okay, so it looks like entries have stopped coming in. So a little over half have not heard about them. So this will be something we'll introduce you today, and about a fourth have heard of them, and about less than 1 in 5 have used them in your work. So thank you for participating in this poll. The 40 developmental assets are at the heart of the Search Institute's work. Positive experiences, relationships, and opportunities, and personal qualities are what children need to grow up to be healthy, caring, and responsible. Created in the 1990s, the framework is grounded in research on child and adolescent development, risk prevention, and resiliencies. Assets are easy to build. Asset building is about relationships. We'll go to the next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So there are 4 categories of external assets as shown in the column there in the middle of the screen with the icons. These categories are support, empowerment, boundaries and expectations, and constructive use of time. Within these 4 categories are 20 external developmental assets as shown in the far right column. External assets are the people in children's life, the places where they will go, such as childcare, school, church, community programs, and the activities that they participate in, such as 4-H, Scouts, mentoring programs, sports, dance, or any other of the creative arts. There are also 4 categories of internal assets to each individual as shown in the icons. These categories are commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. Internal assets are the choices children make. As stakeholders, community partners, and providers, our work focuses on the external assets which children outline, the relationship, experiences, and expectations young people need to thrive. We also cultivate the internal assets. We foster, as you can see here in the right column, honesty, responsibility, personal power, and interpersonal skills in school and when the children participate in various programs. Back to you, Allison.
So I'm really glad that I have this on my phone because my Zoom is now taking its own sweet time. So as we look at the 40 developmental assets, these represent common wisdom about the kinds of positive experiences and characteristics that children need and deserve. And surveys of almost 150,000 students in grades 6 through 12 reveal that assets are a powerful influence on their adolescent behavior. So regardless of gender, ethnic heritage, economic situation, or geographic location, assets promote both positive behaviors and attitudes and help protect young people from many different problematic behaviors. So part of this looks at the SSNREs, or the safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments. And because the developmental assets can have a powerful influence on individuals, communities and adults with strong positive asset development are part of these fundamentals. So this quote, safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments are among the most powerful, protective, and healing forces in a child's life. These relationships, fostered at home, at school, and in the community, are the building blocks of a child's physical and emotional growth. So this really shares that safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments can promote a healthy child's development and can also buffer against the impact of stress and trauma. So as we look to support optimal child development, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the National Institute on Drug Abuse provide us with research that shows that the safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments support optimal child development. So the protective factors that have the potential to reduce violent behaviors, to foster resilience among youth, and to prevent substance abuse behaviors in adolescents. The Indiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence initiated the Small Moments campaign in 2016, and they have a video that they've put out that will be on a link, in the resource guide that you will be able to get at the end of the presentation. And so the goal of this campaign is that it's a prevention strategy to educate the community rather than to focus on the at-risk groups. So we really look to stop violence before it starts. And the idea is to teach the skills to everyone. So nurturing relationships are essential from the beginning and can have an enormous impact on a child's life. So I'm interested as stakeholders, as you know, part of Extension, we're stakeholders in the community. We look to providers and community partners as well to make sure that we are providing safe, stable, nurturing environments. When you think of safety, and I'm going to have you put some responses in the chat box, what do you picture when you think of safety? And hopefully, I'm really hopeful that after this, I'll be able to go back to the chat box and see some of these responses. So, Jane, if you're watching, and I forgot to introduce Jane. Jane Horner is another HHS educator in Cass County, and she's serving as our moderator today.
So right now, somebody said freedom, someone protecting me, car seats, security, secure home. Those are some that you've gotten.
Great. Thank you all for sharing, and you can feel free to continue to share as we talk. When we look at defining safe, safe means that we create families and communities where children grow up free from fear and secure from physical or psychological harm. So for families, this means that they are able to protect their kids from experiencing or witnessing violence. When we think about communities, this means addressing the safety in all of the places where our children are living, are learning, are working, playing, and growing. So communities can work to ensure safe childcare in educational settings, neighborhoods that are free from discrimination, and healthy environmental conditions with safe housing, clean air, and water. So what do you picture, just like you did before, what do you picture when you hear the word stable? What does that mean for you, or how would you see that in the environment that you live in?
Somebody said unconditional love.
Great.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
Predictable, another good one. Less worry, consistency.
Yeah, these are great responses. So when we look towards the definition of stable within the SSNREs, stable describes the degree of predictability and consistency in a child's social and emotional, physical environment. So within families, stability comes from the presence of reliable caregivers, regular routines with consistent disciplinary consequences. Within the community, stability relies on the availability of affordable housing, dependable transportation, food security, and sustainable employment opportunities. So that third descriptor word of nurturing, same question. what does that mean to you? What would you see in nurturing environments?
Happiness. Love and support. Feeling safe and loved. An attentive parent with lots of affectionate touch. Attentive. Belonging.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. I love that you are all that you are sharing. So when we look at the defining nurturing, it describes the extent to which a parent or a caregiver is able and available to sensitively and consistently respond to and meet the needs of their child. So for families, this means that children receive, witness nurturing behaviors among parents. So many of those that you all have listed among parents, caregivers, family members, and peers. Community members can help support children and families. It looks like it's gone now. Children and families.
Do you need Barb to put up, excuse me, Allison, you want Barb to put up her slideshow because yours is gone?
That would be great. And as she's doing that, I'm going to keep talking about the nurturing. And this is in the belief that we all contribute to the well-being of youth by advocating for public investment in quality childcare, in great schools, and youth programs. So though that takes us a little bit deeper into understanding the safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments.
Barb, you're not in presenter mode. I don't know if you can switch it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can. Okay. Okay.
There you go. Awesome.
Okay, thank you. In my screen, it was showing up okay. So children acquire a sense of personal power, interpersonal skills, honesty, self-esteem, and have a positive view of their personal future. These internal assets are impacted by the external forces in their lives. So it's important to impart many of these lessons during preschool and the primary elementary years when children are most susceptible to learning them. The process is cumulative and empowering. As children grow older, they feel empowered to take responsibility for their own actions, as well as positively engage with their peers and take on leadership positions. So as Allison mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Hero Storytime was developed around 8 children's books. For each of the 8 books, a teaching guide has been produced, and one of the guides is shown here. If you'll look at it, the guide here on the right-hand side of the screen, the section on the upper left of each guide provides suggestions for discussion questions with children correlated with the book. On the upper right side are suggested activity ideas to expand upon the book reading. Both of these lists are suggestions to help you get started. And so you can expand and add your own ideas. In the lower left section is a section titled Flying Higher. This provides additional information and resources to enhance your learning. In the lower right corner provides a description of the developmental assets, or as we refer to it, the superpower for children. On the family guide that you can see here, We have a family newsletter that's associated with each of the 8 books in Hero Story Time. And this can be provided to families to expand the learning at home. So we're making that homeschool connection. So looking at the family newsletter, featured at the top is the name and author of the book and a description of the developmental asset being featured. The Think About It section provides families with information on how they can support children's development at home. So it gives some suggestions and ideas to families and caregivers. And also included in this section is an adult superpower of things parents or caregivers can do for themselves, especially for self-care. The superpower section provides more detailed information about the developmental asset and the link to the Search Institute website to view all 40 developmental assets. And then supplemental readings are also suggested at the bottom of the page, along with a thought-provoking saying. So within these 40 developmental assets, Hero Storytime addresses the 8 assets shown on this slide. The first 2, support and boundaries and expectations, target the external assets, and the last 3 categories target internal assets, which are positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. So the books shown here are the books used in Hero Storytime, and you may be familiar with some of these books. So for the program, we selected the books of How Do Dinosaurs Say I'm Mad, Stand Tall, Molly Lou Mellon, Llama Llama and the Bully Goat, Talk and Work It Out, I Am Enough, Llama Llama Mrs. Mama, Lacey Walker Nonstop Talker, and the classic The Kissing Hand.
So now that we've shown you a little bit about the program and a little bit about the why, we want to share with you how we use it in Indiana. So to this point, this has really been a train the trainer. So we use the program to teach preschool teachers the why that you just went through. So we go into a little more depth about, let's say, stable nurturing relationships, exploring the 40 developmental assets a little bit more, and just discussing the importance of building strong, competent, resilient children. Then with the books, we actually hopefully have sets, and if not, then we, like you see there, check with your local library for the books. We take a set of the books so that way teachers can explore the books. So I pair them up or I break them up into small groups. They read through the book, they look through the curriculum guide and the newsletter, and so then they report out a little bit of reading rainbow style. So they give a synopsis of the book, and then they identify a favorite activity that they found, or even maybe one that they've done previously with the books, because many of them are common books. So as we look at the evaluations, in the very early stages of delivering this, we delivered it and we piloted to 20 early childhood teachers from 5 different sites. And they all shared positive feedback with the idea of the reading program and the usage. They had weekly surveys that they were sent to the teachers who opted into participating. And they collected information on what book the teachers were reading, how often they read it, how many and which of the activities did they do with the students. And they also collected observational reports of student responses. So as we move forward with this program going more statewide, we are going to be using our survey builder program so we can collect some more consistent evaluation information. So as Barb was sharing, we do have some of the teacher notes that I have received from delivering this in the past. So on the book Llama Llama Mrs. Mama, one teacher shared that the children loved the lesson. They enjoyed trying to get another child to guess their emotion on their face. And we continued to talk about the superpower all week. So one of the activities was playing an emotional charades type of game. Another teacher shared that one of the students was having a rough morning when he got dropped off. And so her aide reminded him about the book that they read that week, that his mom would come back to get him later, just like Mama's mom did. In the book, I Am Enough, one teacher shares they had fun with this book and they enjoyed finding special characteristics that each student had throughout the day and mentioning it to them. And then another class made a class list called I Like Me, and each student wrote or helped write something that they liked about themselves, such as I like my hair. Each student signed their sentence, and then the posters were hanging up in their classroom for them to see and for the rest of the year. And when they had time, they took them down and let the kids, and then read them out loud, and the kids lit up. For Llama Llama and the Bully Goat, one classroom spent a long time on this, and they continued to talk about ways to be a good friend for several days throughout the week. And the teacher identified that the class could relate to both Mama and to Gilroy. And then in the book, How Do Dinosaurs Say I'm Mad, this teacher enjoyed reading the book to the class, and she identified that the class got something different out of it with each reading, which is part of the goal of multiple times of reading. And she says she will definitely read this book in the classroom more throughout the year. She enjoyed how the book followed the count to 10 and breathing exercises. She says she saw one little one acting out one of their breathing exercises when they read the page about the dinosaur breathing. So she loves that the child made the connection. So those are just some different things and different comments that we've received on the program so far. So up here, we've got partnering possibilities. And this is left blank intentionally because we have ideas of ways that we might partner with other community agencies. However, I would love to hear from you as you've been through this program, been through this half an hour with us. What are some ideas? And you can feel free to share in the chat box if you'd like, of how you might think, or what community partners you might think could benefit from Heroes Story Time. Absolutely, Head Start.
Local libraries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Early childhood schools, preschools.
Daycares, yep, absolutely. Okay, Barb, so I'll let you go ahead and populate that list that we have. First book, yeah, absolutely. First books to purchase for classrooms at a lower cost. And that's, yeah, I could go on for about that. But okay, so partnering possibilities. So just like you mentioned, library programs, Head Starts, daycare providers. So in Indiana, our childcare providers are relatively diverse. So we have faith-based providers, family childcare homes, and also licensed centers. We also thought the childcare resource and referral agencies. So having come from a childcare resource and referral agency, each zip code in the United States is actually served by a childcare resource and referral. So I know that they all do slightly different things, but ultimately the goal is to support early childhood providers and families who are in need of childcare. Even though this program is written towards a 3 to 5 age range, we also list kindergarten teachers because they serve kiddos who might be new to school and new to gaining some of these social emotional experiences. School counselors were another idea that we had discussed, and then also sharing it with foster parents. Thanks for sharing that, LaDonna. So MOPS or other similar groups. So there's a lot of different ways that this can be shared. So when we look at sharing it with some of the community agencies, so MOPS groups, or foster parents, we might not necessarily share all of the background information as we did today. And it might be that we go in and we deliver this as a direct, reading program. So it might be that I go in and I read the book, I take some activities, work with, the different families, things like that. So there's different ways that we are exploring how to use Heroes story time, and then with the utmost importance of getting the information out to families.
And if I can insert, for those that are not familiar with the acronym MOPS, it's Mothers of Preschoolers.
Thanks, Barb. So this slide, you see some of the resource links. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we do have a resource guide for you, so you don't have to worry about writing all of these down. But we've got a link to the curriculum guides and the family newsletter pages, and those are available on the Purdue Education Store for anybody to download and to use. Then we've also got a link to the 40 developmental assets. So knowing that many of you have not explored the 40 developmental assets quite yet, these are assets and they have different age groups. And so all of the assets stay the same, but so they've got assets that are geared towards the preschool age children, young elementary, middle school ages, high school ages. So, it's important to know that the assets are not going to be worked on only in the preschool age range, that it's something that's continued to develop across a lifetime. Last year, with COVID happening, we wanted to make sure that we got the books out for people to be able to listen to and families. So we do have a YouTube playlist of most of the books being read. So that link will be there for you. And then on the next slide of resources, you will see some of the social emotional development supports. So one resource that I always go to is the Center on Social Emotional and Early Foundation. Let's start it up again, Allison. The Center on the Social Emotional Foundations for Early Learning. So CSEFL, I've referred to it as an acronym for way too long. And then another really good one is the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations. And then the final link you see there is the Small Moments video. So we also have on the resource page that we can email you, have a Qualtrics link, because we really like to get feedback that if you opt into using this program, we would love to see some reports of where you're using it and how you're using it and that sort of thing. So there's a Qualtrics link on there. So now that as we're coming to a close, that you've learned more about bestowing heroes with, bestowing children with superpowers, or developing them, those little superheroes in them, I would like to see a little bit, like Jane's going to pull up a poll. So how do you think that you might use this, or do you think you might use this?
While we're waiting for people to respond to the poll, I just want to mention that the guides, the teaching guides and the family newsletters are free for download on the Purdue Education Store.
Yeah, I saw Joy's comment pop up on my phone that she's, can share this with the pre-K classes that she works with. So I am not seeing the poll on my screen. That could be because I'm on a mobile device.
Okay, I can read it off. We have about 2/3 of the participants saying that they will possibly use this in the future, about 1/4 that will say they will use it now, and a little over 10% that's going to keep it in their back pocket.
Yeah, totally fair. And I appreciate you all for sharing your feedback on that. So as Barb has the questions slide up, this is now time. What questions do you have for us?
And we're probably a small enough group that if you want to unmute and ask your question, we can do that also.
What is, I keep playing with the baby video. What is first book? Somebody mentioned that. Like it says first book to purchase books for classroom at a lower cost.
It's a program that a lot of people use, like in our state, extension homemakers do that, where they go in and if you heard the Dolly Parton thing, I think isn't that what it is, Barb? It's a program where it's a company that you can go buy books from. So like there's Scholastics and then there's First Books that you can purchase them from, and then they get them in there. I think that's probably what they were talking about.
All right, thank you.
Book is a national clearinghouse for educators to purchase books at a low cost. Oftentimes there will be special events where you can order quantities of books for free, children's books, and all you have to pay is the shipping. We did this with our extension homemakers with a very similar program to this that was called Raising Young Readers. And our extension homemakers would go into Head Start and read these 5 children's books that were focused on health, wellness, and nutrition. There was a family newsletter that went along with it. And we purchased the books from First Book, and it happened to one time when we purchased them, the Harlem Globetrotters was paying everyone's shipping for that month. So we got them all for free, but you do buy them in boxes and cases. And the cases come with a variety of amounts of books. So you need to set up an account, but it's pretty much for any educational facility, school, to purchase books for kids.
Thank you.
Good
So-
question.
Hey, real
Yeah.
quick, I want to mention that I put a link, I put 2 links. One's a link for Qualtrics about our presentation today. And another one is a link to our Purdue Education Store, where we said you could find the Hero Storytime.
So thank you. So the Qualtrics link, you're actually not going to give us any feedback for our presentation today necessarily, but it does give us your name, your state, simply because we're curious of where we're sending this. And then it will give us your email address. So that way we can email you the resource guide and any potential information, so we can connect with you after the program, after today. So Barb, do you want to go ahead and move to the next slide? You guys, we can still keep answering questions, but then that way, anybody who's on the recording, here is our email addresses. So if you want to email us, if you're watching the recording, so that way you can get this resource guide as well, I would love to hear from you. I did see a question come in, I believe, about how many weeks this program goes. Jane, can you see that?
I can.
Yes, I
Okay.
did see that. Sorry.
That's okay. So is that what the question was?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So there's no real guide that we had in creating this program, because there's freedom. So theoretically, 8 books, 8 weeks. However, knowing that each classroom is going to differ from year to year in what they need. If there's a classroom that needs Llama Llama Mrs. Mama for 4 weeks at the beginning of the year to help their kiddos move through some of those developmental asset building skills, to move through simply coming into school, or also the kissing hand, the teachers, as they're using these books, can absolutely use them for as long as they need to. So, there's no true prescribed methodology to how it's implemented in the classroom. That was a good question. What other questions do you have?
And LaDonna asked about who to contact a partner. And LaDonna, we've got both Allison's email address and my email address up there on the screen. And it will also, if you'll fill out that Qualtrics so we can get your information, we send the resource list, it will be at the bottom there also.
So the evaluation will be the teacher's feedback?
Yes. So
Okay.
we'll as we teach the program to the teachers, we'll get their feedback on it. There's been discussion about how we move forward and how we grow this program. So it's definitely something that I want to, that I'd love to get more in-depth evaluation on. But that's a step that's probably a little bit down the road at this point.
So Allison, another question came in. What's the oldest age group you would use this with?
Oh, that's a hard question. Because early childhood, by definition, really goes up until the age of 8. So, second grade, I think that you could still use it. You could even potentially get, especially with the 3-year-olds, there might have to be some activity modification a little bit. So that's where we also rely on teachers using their knowledge and their skills that they have developed on developmental best practices and things like that. So I'd say up to second grade, especially if you see a need. Some of the books second graders might find a little bit young, but that's where you might also be able to go to some of the books on the supplemental reading list on the family newsletters.
So as Allison mentioned early on in the presentation, this was designed for 3 to 5-year-olds, but we know that, ages of development don't always match up with their chronological age, so it can be kind of modified.
So I see on my computer that it is 11:46. So I'm going to stay on, but I thank you all for being here. And I hope that you have a great rest of the last day of the annual session.
Thank you for attending our session today.
Allison, can you stop the recording?
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.